Hi, I'm Em, and welcome back to the Professionals Recovery Room.
Today I'm talking about why taking care of yourself at work is still sometimes seen as a weakness, and why that thinking is completely backwards. Somewhere along the way, taking care of yourself at work got confused with doing less. So if you're taking a break, you're slacking. If you're setting a boundary, you're not a team player. And if you're saying no to something, you're automatically difficult regardless of what that thing is. First, I want to talk a little bit about where this thinking came from in the first place, because I don't think you can really change a belief until you truly understand where it came from. Here's the thing. The way most of us approach work today, the always on, the push through it, be seen to be busy culture, wasn't designed for the kind of work most of us are actually doing today. If you go back to the early 1900s, work was almost entirely physical. We had factories, assembly lines, manual labor. And in that world, output was directly tied to hours. The longer you worked, the more you produced. It was linear. And the system made sense, even if it was brutal, and even if it led to some serious issues with workers' rights over the following decades. That's a whole nother discussion in itself. But here's what happened. Labor laws eventually improved. Working hours got regulated, and protections were put in place. The hours shortened, but the mindset, the idea that more time equals more value, that didn't fully evolve with it. And by the time we landed in modern corporate environments, it just morphed into something a bit more subtle. It became about being the first one in and the last one out, the one being seen, always available, always busy. And busyness started signaling value, not effectiveness, just visible effort. Now, as I was saying, here's the critical point. We're doing a completely different type of work now. Most of you listening to this are navigating constant decision-making, problem-solving, context switching, relationship management. That's cognitively demanding work. And we're still applying a model designed for physical endurance to something that requires mental precision. So what actually happens is people start feeling overwhelmed. They feel behind. They feel like they should be able to handle more, but the issue isn't effort, it's overload. And the science backs this up time and time again. Research across multiple peer-reviewed studies, including work published in the Journal of Neuroscience and reviewed in papers on prefrontal cortex function, show that chronic stress directly impairs executive function. We're talking about the working memory, attention, cognitive flexibility, and decision-making. The very things your job depends on. And when you're constantly running on empty, you're not performing at that higher level. You're actually performing at a very reduced one. There's also a well-known piece of research from Stanford economist John Pencavel, which found that productivity per hour drops sharply once someone works more than 50 hours a week. And after 55 hours, it drops so significantly that the additional hours produced almost no meaningful output. You're working more and getting less done. That's just crazy inefficient, and it's exhausting for nothing. Why keep pushing when you're going to get nothing out of it? So when you feel busy all day but finish feeling like you didn't actually do anything, it's not a personal failing. That's what overload does to performance. So now that we know that, let's just start with thinking about breaks, because this is the one people tend to feel most guilty about. A 2022 meta-analysis published in PLOS One which reviewed over 2 decades of research on micro breaks, found that even short breaks of just a few minutes can help restore focus, reduce fatigue, and improve performance on subsequent tasks. Importantly, no study in that review found that taking a break worsened performance. Not one. You come back sharper. And there's a biological reason for this. Your brain operates in natural cycles, what researchers call the ultradian rhythms, first identified by sleep researcher Nathaniel Kleitman back in the 1950s. And I'm sorry if I mispronounce any of these. Not an expert in pronunciation, but we all get the point. These are roughly 90 to 120-minute cycles of higher and lower alertness that your brain moves through all day, not just when you sleep. During the lower phase of each cycle, your brain is literally trying to recover. Pushing through it, which most of us do by defaulting to stress hormones and caffeine, isn't sustainable. It's biology. It's like overriding a warning signal. Working with these rhythms, taking intentional recovery breaks, is how high performers actually sustain their output. Research on deliberate practice by Anders Ericsson found that elite performers, like musicians, athletes, chess players, rarely exceeded about 4 hours of genuinely focused deep work per day. Now let's talk about boundaries, one of my favorite subjects, because I know that word can feel loaded and like automatically make you feel like you're doing something wrong. But people who have clear limits around their time and their workload tend to experience lower burnout and higher engagement over time. That's consistent across occupational health research. When you are constantly draining your cognitive and emotional capacity without giving it time to recover, performance degrades, and it's not all at once. It happens gradually so you don't notice that it's happening at first. And you start making poor decisions, and your patience shortens, and your creativity narrows, and eventually you hit a wall. Setting a boundary isn't disengagement, and it doesn't always mean saying no. It's how you stay in the game for the long term and make your work for you. Now let's talk about what all of this looks like in practice. And I want to keep this really simple because I think one of the biggest traps is turning all of this into another complicated system. And as you know, through all of my episodes, we just take small steps here. So I just want you to think about one thing. Where is the unnecessary friction in your day? And once you identify that, then think about what's one thing you could remove or protect or reset. This is really one of those mindful activities that I bring up quite often, but it really is that critical. And sometimes it's just an important reminder. Maybe you're already doing it, but you just need that push to remember to continue doing it. So maybe you want to start your morning in a way that sets you up for the rest of your day. Or maybe you want to make sure that you're taking a genuine break before you hit exhaustion during your workday so that you're working with your rhythms. Or maybe it's just a restructure of the work so that you're working with your personal rhythms. Just choose one thing you can do to help support your well-being. And I just want to leave with some final thoughts. If the environment you're in makes taking care of yourself feel wrong, like it's a sign of weakness or disengagement or that you're not committed, I want you to sit with this. That feeling isn't evidence that you're doing anything wrong. It's just evidence that the system was built around a model that no longer fits the work that most of us are doing, and we just haven't caught up yet. High performance doesn't come from pushing people to their limits indefinitely. The research is consistent on this. It comes from creating conditions where people can actually sustain how they perform, where the energy, the focus, the capacity are all protected and not just burned through day after day. And that starts with you, with how you manage your energy, your own attention, and the decisions you make every single day about what gets your best. You're not doing less when you protect yourself. You're protecting your ability to do more and to keep doing it. Take this week and choose one thing, and make sure you follow through and make it small so you can build on it step by step. Thanks for joining. See you next time.